welcome to English with Chris. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you about 5 of the most common mistakes that I hear every single day from my English students. I've been teaching English for a long time, almost 10 years, and these are the 5 mistakes that I hear the most often. So you're going to find out what these mistakes are, and I'm going to teach you some tips and tricks on how to correct them in order to make your English more fluent and more understandable. The first and most common mistake that I hear is the difference between I was and I have been. Now, usually my students overuse the past simple, I was, or I played, or I went, and they underuse the present perfect, I have been, I have played, I have gone. This is usually because they don't fully understand how to use the present perfect, or they know it exists, but they don't have the confidence to use it properly. So an example of a mistake here is when I ask a student a question like, how long have you worked at this company? And they will answer, I worked here for 2 years. So I asked the question in the present perfect, and they answered in the past simple. Now, I asked the question in the present perfect because they still work at this company. But when they answer, I worked there for 2 years in the past simple, this means that they don't work there anymore, that they finished working there at some point in the past. So the correct answer to this question should have been, I have worked at this company for 2 years, which means I started 2 years ago and I still work here now. So I have worked here for 2 years. So the best way to understand the difference between these tenses is understanding the difference between finished time and unfinished time. So when we use the past simple, we use it with finished time expressions like yesterday or last week or last year or when I was a child. For example, yesterday I went for a coffee. When I was a child, I loved to play football. However, when we are talking about things that are unfinished or using time that is unfinished, we should use the present perfect. I have been, I have gone. For example, today I have had 2 coffees. Today is unfinished, so we say I have had 2 coffees. Or in my life, I have been to Australia. My life is unfinished, so we use the present perfect. Or for an activity that is unfinished, I have taught you for 2 years, or I have lived here for 5 years. And once you can understand this difference between finished time and unfinished time, all you have to do is practice, practice, practice. This is the same for anything in English. The best way to improve it, especially if your brain is pre-programmed to make a mistake because you've been making it again and again for years, what you have to do is reprogram your brain almost to say things correctly. So the best techniques and tips that I have for this are writing on little post-it notes and putting them around your house. For example, you might put a post-it note on the fridge saying, I have eaten too much. And then another one saying, I ate too much yesterday. Or you might put a post-it note on the TV saying, I have watched too much TV this week. And then another one next to it saying, last week I didn't watch too much TV. Now for the second mistake I have heard the most. This is forgetting to use the helping verb when asking questions. And this is one of the worst mistakes because when you ask a question badly, it can sound really, really bad to the native ear. For example, I hear every day questions like, what means this? Or where he gone? Just completely forgetting to use the helping verb. Obviously, these questions should be, what does this mean? Or where has he gone? To correct this mistake, obviously you need to know the correct word order for questions. I'm sure you've all studied it at some point, but the word order for most questions should go question word, like what, which, who, where. Then the helping verb, like do or be or have. And then the subject, like I or he or she. And then the main verb, any verb in the language, play, watch, eat. And then the object. This could literally be anything. For example, what did you eat today? Or where has he gone for lunch? Now again, the best way to correct this mistake is through visual aids, post-it notes, writing, watching movies with subtitles so you see the correct forms again and again, and repetition, speaking, using it in practice, but using the correct form in practice, because if you continue to use the wrong question form, which your brain is pre-programmed to use, then you will use it forever. So you have to learn the correct form, write it down. Visual aids are always better because your visual memory is better than your auditory memory. And then put it into practice. Ask questions. You can combine asking questions with the present perfect. So when you meet a person, what have you done recently? Where have you been? Have you been exercising much? Have you been eating healthy? Things like that. The next most common mistake I always hear, and probably the simplest mistake that people make, is forgetting to use the S in the third person singular. If you don't understand that, it's when people say he do instead of he does, or she go instead of she goes, or it play instead of it plays. I think almost every English learner knows that you have to use the S in these cases, but they just forget when they're speaking because they're thinking about so many different things, and this is just a simple little mistake. So it's usually a slip of the tongue, not a misunderstanding when this mistake is made. So again, the best way to correct this is repetition, saying it correctly, practice it in your head, practice just saying he goes, she does, say it over and over 10, hundreds, thousands of times, and eventually you will reprogram your brain to say these things properly and your English will sound so much better. The fourth most common mistake I hear every day is misusing conditionals and saying things like, if I will do it, I will be happy, instead of if I do it, I will be happy. Or if I would win the lotto, I would be happy, instead of if I won the lotto, I would be happy. So you probably got the mistake from those examples, but the mistake is using will or would directly after the if word. So you should use will or would in the second clause of the sentence. For example, if I am ready, I will be there on time. That's a first conditional. Or for a second conditional, if I was president, I would lower taxes. This is usually a mistake of misunderstanding the grammar and how to use it. And I think sometimes even natives make this mistake. I hear it sometimes. Maybe they weren't taught properly. So I can understand why people make these mistakes. But if you want your English to be accurate and professional, you should speak properly and use the correct grammar. And the final, most common mistake that I hear every day is another confusion and mistake of the tenses. And it's saying things like, I am doing it every day, instead of, I do it every day. Or, I am playing football every week, instead of, I play football every week. So basically, people overuse the present continuous tense when they should be using the present simple tense to describe things that happen regularly or to describe things that are generally true. We should use the present continuous to talk about what is happening now. For example, I am teaching you English, or you are learning English. You can also use the present continuous tense to talk about a future plan. So you could say, tomorrow I am working all day. Or you could say, at the weekend we are having a party. Now, there is one exception to this. There's one situation where you can use the present continuous to talk about things that happen regularly. And this is when you're complaining about something that you don't like. So if you say something like, he's always picking his nose, or he's always arriving late for meetings. So now, as always, for the interactive part of my lesson, I'm going to give you a sentence that is incorrect, and I would like you to correct it using the tips and tricks and the rules that I have taught you today. So the first incorrect sentence is, where the ingredients for cooking. You can pause the video if you would like to have a little think about it. So obviously the correct way of saying this sentence is, where are the ingredients for cooking? The next incorrect sentence is, if I will finish on time, I will go to the party. Again, you can pause it if you like. So the correct way of saying this sentence is, if I finish on time, I will go to the party. Don't use will directly after if. My next incorrect sentence is, I was in Japan 2 times. The correct way of saying this sentence is, I have been to Japan 2 times, or I have gone to Japan 2 times. And my final incorrect sentence is, we are having parties every Friday. And the correct way of saying this sentence is, we have parties every Friday. And thank you for watching my lesson today. I hope that you've learnt a lot and you can put it into practice to improve your English. If you did enjoy the video today, please could you like the video and subscribe to my channel. It will help me a lot and it will ensure that you can see any future videos that I post on my channel. Thank you very much.